Alright, first lesson is about real property. What is real property? Well, to learn about real property, meet Bill. Bill is a house, that's real property. It's dirt, it's real estate, and it's a different set of rules. Well, we gotta learn more about Bill. Bill, he's married. Meet Betty. They also have 2.5 kids. Little 0.5, just a minor, under 18, no limbs, but she's still happy. Real property, Bill, Betty. They have a house. They have a cabin in Arizona. They have a house in California that Betty inherited. And they have a commercial building in Nevada. So there's a snapshot of the real property that Bill and Betty own. So real property, house, cabin, condo, little slice of heaven, a retirement, or not a retirement, a commercial building. Now, if your house started out on wheels, either a manufactured home or a trailer, it's not real property, it's personal property. It's a different set of rules that apply there. Second word we need to learn about is called title. Who owned the legal title is a question that we ask. So meet Brad. Brad's single. Brad is a house. Brad is another house. Brad. Brad's pretty simple. It's either going to be in Brad's name or a business entity, Brad's LLC. Alright, back to Bill and Betty. Enough about Brad. So when there's married couples or multiple owners, there's a few choices about the title. It's either going to be owned in one of their names, or you're going to see these choices. It's going to be joint tenants with right of survivorship, sometimes abbreviated JTWROS, or community property with right of survivorships, tenants in common, or husband and wife. Best way to figure out what it is look at the deed. If you have a copy of the deed, great. If not, here's some links on places where it'll tell you how to look up the deed. Joint tenants with right of survivorship. So Bill and Betty, they own the house, joint tenants with right of survivorship. Bill dies, all the house goes to Betty. Community property with right of survivorship, same thing. Bill dies, house goes to Betty. Little different tax result, but we're not talking about that here. Now, does the deed say husband and wife? If so, there's a presumption, joint tenants with right of survivorship. Tenants in common, this is going to be different. Back to Brad. Bill and Brad, they bought a rental house together. They owned it as tenants in common. Brad dies. Now Brad's interest, his 50% interest will go to his estate. Other title options you could see, it could be owned by a trust. If so, then the terms of the trust control. Or it could be owned by a business entity, LLC, partnership, corporation, then the business entity would control. So, and if there's a business entity, you got to look and see if there's a buy-sell agreement, if the business entity controlled. Now, estate. What is an estate? Back to Brad. He owned a house, car, bank account, IRA. Brad dies. Who owns his stuff? Well, his estate does. Brad's estate owns his house, his car, his bank account, IRA. So IRA is controlled by beneficiary designations, but Brad didn't name a beneficiary, so his estate is a beneficiary. Personal property. Now we're concerned about personal property that has a title, such as bank accounts, investments. We're not concerned about furniture, jewelry, tools. There's no title on those. You can give those as the decedent wished. Personal property. So here's a snapshot of personal property. Cars. For now, we're going to ignore cars. They're usually pretty easy to transfer at the DMV if you have a death certificate. Now, how do you transfer assets out of the name of the estate? That is a good question. Now, that depends on the type of assets and the value. So you'll put in your information to calculate. So now that you've learned what real property is, personal property, and about title, you can use this calculator to give you an idea of what the process will be.